you all for coming out. It is wonderful to have a full house in person. I think that'll help with questions, reviewing this information later for the rest of all of our other agents. We are so fortunate to have the executive director of the Real Estate Commission, Scott Lederer, here this morning. He's been a year in office. I can say, yeah. And I can speak from personal experience that I have noticed huge changes already. We're fortunate that he is in that position, and I would love to pass the mic over and have him review a lot of changes, updates, initiatives, and tips, and all of.
Hopefully some good information.
Hopefully
some good information.
That's right. I don't have to pass the mic over. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kara. Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for coming out today. I appreciate it. When Kara reached out to me to come out, she had heard me speak at a couple of association and other association seminars, and thought that maybe I could bring something to the table here, so I hope I do. A little bit about me, I guess, as Kara said. I took this job a year and a month ago. Let's see how this works here. There we go. A little bit about, I just grabbed my bio off off my downloads. Anyway, I got my license in 1979. I was still in college, and was bored on the weekends, and I had a broker friend who represented a small builder, so I was able to, on the weekends, sit in a model home, and that's what really got me into the business. So when I graduated, a year later, I went full-time, and did new homes for most of the beginning of my career. I did some commercial with the Rouse Company in the 80s, and fast forward, I opened my own brokerage in 2001 out in Carroll County, where I was living at the time. Expanded that in 9 years to 4 offices. I had 2 in Pennsylvania and 2 in Carroll County, Maryland. And then, as some of you who might have been in the business back in 2005 into 2006, when the market kind of fell off the edge of the table, I pulled back into 1 office in Westminster back in 2007. And then in 2009, I merged with a large Baltimore firm that some of you might remember, Yerman, Whitman, Gaines, and Conklin. And at that time, I became their broker for their Maryland. They had 7 offices in Maryland. 2012, Home Sale Realty out of Pennsylvania, bought Yerman's company, and so I became the broker for Pennsylvania and Maryland, about 1,200 agents, and the president of the Maryland region. So most of my career since I started my own firm has been in management. In 2019, I stepped back away from management for personal reasons, and I went back into pure sales. So I did sales from 2019 until, as I said last year, the opportunity to take this job came up, and I interviewed for it, and here I am. So I'm glad to be here. I think my career helped me certainly understand what I was getting into, but also understand your side of the table. So as Kara said, I've done some hiring. I walked into an agency that was depleted a bit in terms of personnel, had some toxicity, so I worked on that. And today I've got a full staff. We have 3 departments. We have our complaint department, which entails receiving, reviewing complaints. Investigators work for me in that department. I have a couple paralegals that review documents. And then we work closely with the Attorney General's office. My licensing department, I have 3 folks in licensing. For months, I had 1. So that has really helped, having more people doing the work. And we renew, on average, about 125 licenses a day. Now, we don't have to touch all those, obviously, but we touch a lot of them when issues come up. And so we get emails, we get phone calls, and we have to help licensees renew or change things on their license, whether it be names or whatever. So my licensing department's running pretty good right now. And then I have an education department with 2 folks in education, and they review CE courses and also schools, providers that are doing pre-licensing. So that's the makeup of the Real Estate Commission. I wanted to talk today a little, or a lot, I guess, about CE because there's some changes coming next month. If you haven't heard, there was a law passed by the General Assembly last spring that changes a few things related to CE and education in general with the Commission. It was not a legislation that was proposed by us. I believe it was proposed by Maryland Realtors and the education providers. And you'll understand why in a minute. But the changes in that law that were signed by the governor back in May go into effect October 1st. Okay? Now, before I go forward, I want to go backward a little bit. You all know, I guess by now, that because it's almost been a year, that last October 1st, the law went into effect that you had to have your CE completed 30 days prior to your renewal. Show of hands, who knows that? Make me happy. Thank you. Because unfortunately, when I walked into this job, the law had already been enacted. It started October 1st, but unfortunately, the commission was behind the 8 ball on getting the word out. And so I quickly had email blasts started. I was speaking to brokerages. I was speaking to associations and trying to get the word out. But understand, we have a little over 47,000 licensees in the state of Maryland that the commission handles, 47,000. Approximately 26,000 of those belong to the trade association, Maryland Realtors, or your local association, Maryland and National. So by reaching out to the associations, we can cover about half, a little more than half of the licensees, but unfortunately there's a whole nother set that we can't get to through the association because they're not members. So there's a lot of communication that we try to do. And I try to do that with e-blasts. What I'm getting at too is, please make sure, if you haven't been in your account with the Real Estate Commission for a while, please make sure that your email address is up to date, okay? We get a lot of that. I didn't get the emails, I didn't get the blast. I didn't get my renewal notice. Well, what happened was maybe they changed brokerages or they changed their email address and never changed it in our system, and we can only send to what we have in the system, okay? So please double check that if you get a chance, because that's important. And also, if you don't get an email from us and you thought you might supposed to, please go into your spam accounts because some of them go there as well. So that's a little tidbit. So the 30-day regulation that you all raised your hand about, thank you, went into effect last October. And basically what it says is you have to have your CE completed 30 days prior to your renewal date in order to avoid a CE late fee. Okay? Completed, not submitted. The education providers have up to 14 days to submit your credit hours to our system. All right? The Real Estate Commission, we do not upload certificates. Thank God, we don't. But it's the job of the provider, whoever you took the course from, to go in. They all have their own portals into our system and upload the credit hours. Until that happens, they don't show up on your account. But the trigger date is the date you took the class, not the date they submitted it. So the law said you have to complete them 30 days ahead of time, but that gives the providers up to 14 days to submit. I have yet to see a provider go 14 days, but maybe they do. I don't know about every one of them, of course. But most of them get it into our system within a few days from the course that you take. So it's the date you took the course. And the way the law was written, and I just want to explain this a little bit, the way the law was written, it was not written very well, in my opinion. It said that if you don't have your CE completed within prior to 30 days of your renewal, you will be subject to a reinstatement fee. Now, that's a misnomer because you're not reinstating anything, but they chose that verbiage because that was already on our fee schedule at the commission. Reinstatement fee means you're reinstating your license. And that fee has always been, or more recently has been $168 if you don't renew on time and you want to reinstate your license, whether it's been inactive or whatever. You pay the $168 reinstatement fee. So I didn't think that was very fair myself, and I get a lot of feedback on that. So I approached the commission, the commissioners. How many commissioners are there? Anybody? 9. How many are industry members? Industry members. 5, correct. 4 consumer, 5 industry members. So I approached the commissioners and I said, look, I'm getting all this feedback. I think the 168 is a little stiff for a CE late. Okay, and the renewal for a salesperson is only $78. So I proposed 75. And that was approved by the commission last February, but the wheels of government don't move very fast, as you guys probably know. I found out pretty quick. And so right now we're going through a regulatory process to change the fee and the fee schedule in Comar to reflect a new fee, being CE late. Okay, so with the commissioners voting approval on that, now I think it's just a bureaucratic process that we're going through. So hang tight on that. So, and that's not a secret because our commissioner meetings every month are open to the public, and I know Kara attends many of them. So if you ever want to attend a commissioner meeting, you go to our website under Board Business, and it lists them there, and it has a Google Meet link that you can join. And there's a section in every meeting for public comment. So it's usually the third Wednesday of every month. Anyway, going back to the meat of the issue. Stay tuned on that. But that was the big change last October. The big changes this October relate to some of the hours required for different topics in CE. Okay, we have in our, and anything I'm talking about today is on our website, believe it or not. Everything you can do with us, you would never really have to ever call or email the commission. Everything's on the website, unless there's a problem with something. So there are 3 charts on our website under education. The first chart, and this has caused some heartache since this was enacted October 1st, 2023, when the law was changed to say that if you received your initial license on or before October 1st, 2023, and that word "and" is very important, and this is your first renewal, then that's the chart you should be getting your CE completed on. And I've had to go, CE Shop is one of the bigger vendors, and I actually went back to them and helped them reword their website because it was not as clear. And the worst thing anybody can do, and we get it maybe one every other week or so, I took the wrong set of CE. I have to renew tomorrow. What do I do? Well, I'm really sorry, but we can't change that. You have to take the right CE and then renew. Okay? So, whoops. So, does anybody in the room meet this qualification? If you received your initial license on or after October 1st, 2023, and you're looking at your first renewal. Anybody in the room on that one? Okay. This is the set of courses that you need, CE courses you need to take. They're altogether different except for principles of broker relationships and disclosure requirements for sellers. And every other course on that list is not a course you will ever have to take again because the CE chart for the next group is different. So if you fall into this category, these are the CE, these are the 15 hours you need. This side is commercial only. I don't think we have a commercial only agent in the room probably. You don't have a commercial only brokered license, or do you? Okay. If you were a commercial only agent, you would have the word commercial written on your license. Okay, and what that means is you cannot practice residential real estate in Maryland. You can only practice commercial. Okay, and there are only, of this 47,000 licensees, about 1,700 in the state are commercial only. Now, if you're residential and you don't have commercial on your license, you can do either one. Okay, but if it's commercial, you can only do commercial. Anyway, so nobody really has to fool with this side of the chart. So these are the courses you need right now, up until October 1st, and I'm going to tell you what's changing in a minute, but I thought it was important to show what it was now and then next. So this chart, the second chart, is for salespersons and associate brokers licensed prior to October 1st, 2023. Who's that in the room who falls into that category? Most all of you, right? Okay. So right now, these are the CE courses you need. I want to focus on fair housing is only 1.5 hours right now. Ethics is 4.5. I'm sorry, electives is 4.5, okay? Just so you know, broker relationships and disclosures, we use the acronym BRAD for that class. Who in the room remembers it as agency? Right, we used to call it agency. That was easy. I don't know why it ever changed, but it's still talking about agency, relationships, disclosures related to brokerage agreements, whether it be listing or buyer agreements. So this is what you need right now. And I'm focusing on this just because of the changes coming up. The last one is for brokers, designated office managers, and team leaders. Who in the room is a team leader? Okay, a couple? All right. The reason this chart is different is this course right here, supervision. Okay? If you're a broker, designated office manager, or team leader, you need to have those 3 hours of supervision. Pay attention to that 3 for a minute, okay? So that's the 15 hours. The new regulations that go into effect October 1st start with the first chart I mentioned. So if you received your initial license on or after October 1st, 2023, and it's your first renewal, that principles of broker relationships and disclosure and seller disclosure, which is agency and seller disclosure, if you will, was topic K. That goes away altogether. And H fills it in. H is just principles of broker relationships and disclosures, or agency, okay? A number of years ago, the commission felt that the disclosure disclaimer form that we're all very familiar with wasn't being used properly, especially by newer agents who didn't know any better. So they added that document to this class. Really didn't belong in agency. It's not an agency issue. It's a disclosure issue. But that's where they put it. Well, this new legislation does away with it altogether and just takes it back to Brad, topic H, okay? Which is right here. The next change involves, for salespersons, associate brokers licensed prior to the second chart I mentioned, prior to October 1st. And again, like we said at the beginning, if you have a question, just raise your hand, I'll be glad to answer it. Fair housing, NAR added some additional topics and content to their fair housing. And Maryland realtors felt that the state fair housing should expand with the same content. So instead of 1.5 hours for fair housing, you will now need 2 hours of fair housing. Now, I already know a lot of the providers are already offering the 2-hour class, okay? What that does, and I'm going to come back to that in a second, what that does is, since the total 15 never changed in the law, it was always still 15 hours, the electives went from 4.5 to 4. Okay, so you still need 15 total. Now, what happens, let me ask this question. Who's due to renew in October? Anybody? Okay. Okay, well, that's what I'm going to point out, someone in your situation. No, it's good. It's a good thing. I will never point out anything bad, okay? I'll leave that up to Karen. So what I'm about to say is, you can renew your license if you're within 60 days of your renewal date. I like to call it your renewal window. The window opens 60 days prior to your actual renewal date. Okay? As long as you've got all your CE done, you can renew your license 60 days up to 60 days prior to the renewal date. After October 1st, if you've got 1.5 hours of fair housing and you go to renew, you won't be able to renew. The system won't let you. You need 2 hours. Okay? Now, I know there's at least 1 or 2 providers that are creating a 1-hour fair housing course to try to supplement that, but unfortunately, they're hard to approve because they don't contain enough information. So you may be if you've already taken your 1.5 and you don't renew until December, let's say, unfortunately, you're going to have to go take a 2-hour fair housing to renew, even though you've got 1.5. That's the law. Okay? And the commission, we are asked daily if we can waive things, and we can't. It's the law. We don't make the laws, as I said earlier. We enforce them, but we don't make them. So there's very little leeway I have in situations like that. Actually, none right now. So if you're in a situation where that window is open and it's not October 1st yet, I would just, and you've only taken 1.5 hours, I would suggest you go renew. Okay? Because if you renew now and you're in that 60-day window, you'll be okay with the 1.5. But midnight October 1st, clicks over, you got to have 2 hours. So 1.5 won't cut it. The system will not let you renew. Any questions about that? Because that's been trying to get that word out as well. As a matter of fact, I think I sent an e-blast out a while back about that. But if you're in that window, you're good. Okay? No questions. That's good. All right. The last change for the last chart, which was for brokers, managers, and team leaders licensed prior to October 1st. Again, fair housing goes to 2 hours. The supervision, the 3-hour supervision class that you currently need, October 1st, it drops to 1.5 hours. Okay, so when you go to renew, if you've already taken the 3-hour supervision, you're cool. All right? Now, one other thing. Our system does not break apart a class. In other words, if you've taken 3 hours of supervision, but you need another 1.5 hours of electives, that 3-hour supervision class doesn't get broken up. You can't use the extra hours for electives. You could take the class again, and then it would go to electives, but the system will not break apart hours, okay? So 1.5 hours after October 1st for supervision. Now, I'm going to guess Kara would agree with me on this. That was not a good thing to do. That was not, in my opinion, as a former broker, manager, owner, and I actually was on the task force in 2010 with Kathy Connolly at the helm, where we came up with supervision course. We drafted, we created the content for the supervision class that stands today. And I've taught supervision over the years since then. And I can tell you from my experience, 3 hours isn't enough, okay? The content might be able to, if you read through the content, you could read it in 1.5 hours. But in a supervision class, there's so much else, especially real life experiences that get talked about that will be missed in 1.5 hours, in my opinion. So I didn't agree to that one, but again, it's not my job. So that goes to 1.5, and then of course, because of that, the electives in this particular chart go up to 2.5 from what I think is 1.5 now. So yeah, because of the net difference. Anybody have any questions about that as team leaders or managers in the room? Okay. Let's see, what was I going to talk about next? Oh, one more thing, and I said there was 3, there's 4. In the same law, commercial licensees, again, if you had commercial on your license, and nobody in the room does, so we're okay. You never had to take fair housing, obviously, because you're commercial. You're not selling houses. So the law includes now an ADA requirement class for commercial licenses in place of if they had fair housing, which they don't. So that's a 2-hour class as well. And a number of the providers are creating that class because it didn't exist up to now. So they're creating that class for those commercial licensees. Anybody have any questions so far? Okay, well, that's CE. And one other thing in that law that doesn't affect you directly, however, I believe it affects the industry. And up till now, including now, up until October 1st this year, those classes that the commission created and regulate, if you will, is supervision, BRAD or agency, and commercial agency. Now, the providers, the schools that offer those classes, the instructors need to be approved by us, the commission, right now. So if somebody's teaching supervision, they would have already taken a training class from us to be able to teach supervision, and likewise with Brad. The law says that will no longer be the case. It'll be up to the providers themselves to pick their instructors. Okay, we'll see how that works out. It's just going to cause my agency to do a little more monitoring and do some student evaluations. So those student evaluations you might get at the end of the class, hopefully you're going to start getting more of them, they're going to be important to me. So please fill those out when you get those. Yes.
And that is effective when?
All this is October 1st. Yep, in a few weeks. Okay? It's typical that new laws, especially in our arena, are October 1st. That's why your forms change October 1st a lot of times. Forms committees, always use that date normally. Sometimes it's the 1st of January, but most everything we do is October 1st. Okay? All right. So it's on record that you guys all know that you need 2 hours of fair housing if you renew after October 1st, okay? Good. And I can't do anything about it. I can't add a half hour to your record. That's not within my power, okay? So please, if you haven't taken fair housing yet, make sure you take a 2-hour class, because some of the providers are still offering 1.5. So make sure you take a 2-hour class. Okay. Advertising checklist. Kara asked me to talk about things that happen at the commission that hopefully shouldn't happen. So advertising is one of those things that falls into that category. Last year, the law was enacted that says that if you're going to file a complaint about advertising, you can file it anonymously. Okay. Any other complaint that gets filed with the commission, you have to identify who you are as the complainant. Advertising doesn't fall into that category. So you could send me a letter, anonymous letter, with an ad attached to it that is not compliant, and say, please look into this. I do it quite a bit. And what I try to do, I'm following in some of the footsteps of Kathy Connolly, who had my job two times ago, is to not clog up our complaint department with advertising complaints if I can take care of them quickly. So what I do is I get an advertising complaint, I review it. If I believe it's not compliant, I will send a letter or an email to the broker and to the agent and say, I received this anonymous complaint about this. This is the problem with your ad. Please correct it. Within the next 30 days, send me a correction or send me the revised ad or tell me you stopped running the ad, whatever it might be. But I give them 30 days. If I don't get a response, then it goes to our complaint department. And that's when it can become some fines and things like that. So if you get an advertising complaint, and it could be unintentional by all means, but I had one the other day. The licensee, in their signature on their email, all right, they were a team, they were a member of a team. Team name was in the signature. I'll just call it the Smith & Wesson team, okay? All by itself over here. Agent name, agent cell phone, agent email, nothing else. All right, what's wrong with that? Two things majorly wrong with it. Anybody? Broker name and office phone number, because he had his number in there. So the broker name was not there, nor was it, even if he had put it down here and his team name was up here, that's not compliant. Okay, they have to be connected. The team name and the broker name have to be connected, and they also have to be connected by a word, of, with, those kind of things. Okay? And then, of course, the other infraction was that the broker phone number was not on there. If you ever run an ad with your number, your broker number has to be on there. And why is that? Anybody? Right. It's basically to protect the public and allow the public an avenue to get to the broker without having to go through you. okay? And that goes to another extent. I had this question the other day. I have my number on there, and when you call my number as an agent, I have a menu. And it says, you want to talk to the broker, hit 3. I said, nope, nope, it's got to be direct. You can't have to go through an agent to get to the broker, okay? So remember that with advertising. But I'm going to touch on some of the other advertising issues. And by the way, on our website, we have what's called advertising checklist. I'll show you what it looks like. If you have nothing else to do and you want to read it, it looks just like this. Okay? So I'm going to hit the highlights. All advertisements placed on or behalf of a real estate licensee must be submitted to the broker, office manager, or broker manager's designee for compliance review prior to release. How many times do you think that happens? Very few. Very few. But if a complaint gets to the complaint department, that's in the law. That statement is in the law. So please, to Fernando, to Kara, whoever your manager or team leader might be, make sure that somebody else's set of eyes that has supervision over you is looking at your ad. Okay, especially if it's got, if it's an expensive ad to run, you might not want to change it. So that's it. If the advertisement has been created for a member or on behalf of a team, the team leader should also review and approve. Okay, that's in the law too. So what's an advertisement? It needs the name of the licensee, number one. Does the advertisement include the full name of the licensee exactly as appears on their real estate license? All right. Yes.
So some of the agents and larger teams are licensed in multiple states. Sometimes Virginia-based advertisement overlaps about requirements that are important for us here in Maryland. So I see this kind of advertisements all the time. So let's say this team is stationed in Virginia, but also licensed in Maryland or getting started working in Maryland. The advertisement has to follow Maryland.
Absolutely. If Virginia has, I don't even know Virginia's advertising rules, but let's say they have something different.
Virginia, they don't have brokerage names, no broker numbers, it's just like Hulu labs.
That's the way it used to be in the Wild West here years ago. Right. But that changed a long time ago. But no, if it's an ad running from a Maryland licensee, it has to be Maryland rules for a Maryland property or whatever, Maryland licensee. Yep. Okay. License category. If the advertisement includes a licensee's category, is it correct? The only options are salesperson, associate broker, or broker. Okay? Such as associate are not recognized terms such as associate are not recognized as licensing categories. Okay, so if you're going to use your license category, use one of those three. And that takes me to another comment that doesn't involve my oversight, but certainly involves, if you all are members of the association, you cannot use the term realtor in any other form except to identify that you are a realtor. So you can't have in your ad, I'm the best realtor there is. You may be, but you can't use it in that terminology. It can only be Scott Letter, comma, realtor. Okay? But that doesn't involve me. That would involve the association and your broker. Okay, brokerage name, we talked about this. Does the advertisement meaningfully and conspicuously, these words are in the law, display the broker's name and include the broker's full name as it appears on the MRC license? Okay, so you couldn't use Samson. It would have to be Samson Properties because that's the name on your license. Okay, an abbreviation of the name. I think Long and Foster had that problem a while back. Telephone number of broker or office manager. Does the ad include the identified telephone number of the broker? If you don't have any other number in your ad, you don't need their number, Kara's number. You don't need that. Only if you're putting your number in the ad or another number. Okay? Authority. Does the licensee have the written authorization of the owner or listing broker to advertise the property, i.e. a listed contract? That's pretty specific, pretty general comment, but it makes sense. For example, if broker A has chosen to advertise the listings of brokerage B in their front office window, this broker A must have written authorization to do so. Another scenario, if a licensee has created advertising that utilizes MLS photos, written permission must be obtained from the MLS to use those photos. Okay? And there are heavy-duty fines from Bright related to that for violations. True and accurate, that's pretty understanding. I'm not going to run everything. Team advertising. Okay. Does the advertisement include the full name of the licensee as it appears on the license as advertising and solely the name of the team is prohibited? So anytime you have an ad with the team name in it, you need to have somebody on that team's name on that ad. Okay? Doesn't have to be the team leader. It has to be somebody on that team. Their name has to be in that ad. Offers of inducements. We don't get this very often. I'm not going to bore you. But again, if you want to pull that list up, you can. Does the advertisement avoid offering compensation or anything of value to an unlicensed person solely for the referral of a prospective client or customer? You can't do that. And property owned by licensees, we're getting quite a bit of this lately. If the advertisement is for the sale, purchase, or lease of real property that a licensee owns, does the advertisement state the fact that the owner is a real estate licensee in the state of Maryland? You need to have that. Okay? And last, this is not on that list yet because we're redoing it. This is the one-click rule, if everybody's heard that term before. And I'm not a social media expert by any means, but this is the criteria if you're going to run an ad in Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, wherever, social media, electronic media. Okay? If there's not room, I'll try to summarize. If there's not room on the first page, one click has to take you to the information that's necessary. Okay? All right. I saw a couple hands on team leaders. How about team members? Any team members in the room? Not too many, huh? Okay, well, I'll breeze through this then. The Real Estate Commission requires a team leader to let us know that they are a team leader, and we mark their file accordingly. It also makes sure that they have taken or will take the supervision class. We don't need to know the names of all the team members, okay? We just need to know who the team leader is, and there's a form to fill out to register yourself as a team leader. And once you declare yourself as a team leader, you have 90 days to take the supervision class. And then you need to take it every time you renew, as long as you're a team leader, okay? We do require that the branch office you're working out of, or the main office, maintain a file that lists every team in their office, the team leader, and the team members. Okay, we could do a spot audit on that, so that's required. But you don't have to let us know that who the team members are. All right, that's just on an audit issue. Okay, I'm probably jumping ahead of myself here. Team basics. Team must consist of 2 or more associate brokers or salespersons. Can a broker be on a team? Correct, no. Broker can't be a team member, can't be a team leader. We have a lot of brokerages in the state that are husband and wife. You would think they'd want to be a team, right? Can't be. Nor can they do dual agency. How many licenses does it take, licensees, does it take to create a dual agency situation? 3. Ah, love it. 3. Usually I get 2. 3. Whoever the dual agent is, which is usually the broker or office manager or their designee, and then you have the intercompany agent for the buyer, and you have the intercompany agent for the seller. So there's always 3 licenses involved in a dual agency situation. So that's why a husband and wife can't be a team, but it's also why they can't do dual agency. Okay. All licensed team members must be affiliated with the same broker. It's kind of self-explanatory, isn't it? And offer broker services at the same office or branch office. Team members must conduct all real estate brokerage activities from the broker's office or the branch office where their licenses are displayed. Okay? And all teams must inform, I just told you about that. Just so you all understand the hierarchy. If we get a complaint about a licensee, And it's only a complaint about the licensee. Nobody else is mentioned in the complaint. The commissioners, we have 9 commissioners, as we said, and we've created 2 panels of 3 commissioners each. And that's simply to make handling the complaints a little easier to do. So if a complaint comes into my complaint department, I have a complaint administrator, Dawn. Dawn is the front gate, so to speak. She decides, number 1, is the complaint within our jurisdiction of what we can handle. Not just physical, but we get complaints about a builder, let's say. We only handle complaints about licensees. So she decides that. Is it within the statute of limitations? 3 years. 3 years from when the infraction occurred or when the infraction was discovered. If it doesn't meet those, then it doesn't go past Dawn. Once it meets that criteria, Dawn will then send it to one of my paralegals. I have 2 paralegals, and they'll review it to see if it's frivolous or if it's something in the law that could have been broken. If they decide that it fits that category, then they send it to one of my 4 investigators. And my point here to mention this to you guys is, if you get a call or an email from an investigator in my commission, please answer it, because it's important, because they have a certain amount of time to get that investigation done. And if you're a respondent and you're not communicating with the investigator, it's not helping your cause at all, okay? So the investigator does the investigation, comes back to the paralegals, they review it, and then they assign it to one of those 2 panels of commissioners. And the panels of commissioners, the three commissioners, will then review it as a group and decide if it warrants going forward. If not, they send it back and they dismiss it. If it warrants going forward, they then issue a consent order. The consent order then goes to the Attorney General's office, and I point up, we're on the 3rd floor, they're on the 5th floor. Goes to the AG's office for review, and then it's reviewed, and then it is forwarded to the Office of Administrative Hearings, which is a judge. And that's where your actual case is first heard, okay? Then there's appeals and things like that go on. But my point is, I'm going back to the beginning. If you get, as a licensee, you get a complaint against you and you're the respondent, when it gets to that panel of commissioners, that panel of commissioners might decide that there was a lack of supervision somewhere along the way. And yet the complainant, who might have been a homeowner, didn't know to include the broker, but the commissioners will, if they feel like, or the branch office manager or the team leader, if the commissioners feel that there was a lack of supervision that could have contributed to whatever infraction there was. So that's why I'm going back to it now as a team leader comment. Because as a team leader, you could very well be called in to a case. And I was talking to Fernando a little bit ago. Your get out of jail free card is documentation. All right, documentation that you offered training regarding that topic or whatever. You notified the licensee if they didn't attend the training that they should have, and you distributed documentation about it. Documentation is always your get out of jail free card for a branch office, a broker, or a team leader. Okay? Yes?
Yeah, I got a question. What are the most... sorry. Okay. I wanted to ask you, what are the most common mistakes that you see agents do, especially new agents, that lead to investigations, complaints, and disciplinary actions? And what advice will you give to agents about those common mistakes?
Okay, good question, Fernando. Thank you. And this isn't just as my short one-year tenure as the executive director. This is from my years of managing agents. Disclosure, disclosure, disclosure. And followed right on that is documentation, documentation, documentation. Lack of disclosure gets licensees in more trouble than anything else that I've seen. Yes, I could say that they don't put the broker name in the ad or whatever it might be, but that's not the majority of complaints that make it through to that OAH hearing. It's typically something that wasn't disclosed properly or not at all. We had one the other day. See if I can condense this. The listing broker, the listing agent, filled out the deferred water and sewer charge addendum for the seller. The seller signed it. When he filled it out, he put down January 1st, 2024 was the end of that deferred water charge, when in fact it was January 1st, 2037. It was $800 a year, okay? He put down, by mistake, 2024. Never corrected it. At the settlement table, the title attorney said to the buyer, that's not correct. It goes till 2037. And the buyer went through with settlement anyway at the advice of their buyer agent, and then filed a complaint against the listing agent for not providing the proper disclosure. I think the total was like $10,800, something like that. Not an enormous, I mean a big amount, but not an enormous amount. Which then that respondent had to, there was a fine related to it. The commissioners decided that the buyer agent was also at fault, because the buyer agent at the settlement table decided to told the buyer just move ahead. And why would an agent do that? You know, so that's
So you said respondent is the person that is actually being accused of.
correct. When a complaint comes in, if you look on our website, we have a complaint form, and there's complaint number 1. Put your name if you're Harry homeowner. Complaint number 2, Harriet homeowner. Respondent number 1, Joe agent, or respondent number 2, Jane agent. So you could have numerous, even more than that, but our form stops at 2. So the respondent is always the one being accused of whatever it is. The complainant is typically a homeowner. Could be another agent, depending on the infraction, but most of the time it's a member of the public. And it's either a buyer or seller who feels like they were not treated properly or whatever.
So what would have been the correct course of action?
Stop settlement and negotiate it out. Yep, figure it out. But the buyer went ahead with what they were told to do. So yeah, stop as soon as you figured it out, because they hadn't signed yet. Buyer had not signed yet. But the agent was saying, it's okay, you know, we'll figure it out.
Who eventually gonna pay the 10,000 whatever?
It's not finished yet, unfortunately. It's going. That's why I remember it, because I just read it yesterday. Yes.
Is that the front foot benefit fee?
Beg your pardon?
Is that the front foot benefit fee, the setup, the initial?
Yes, the deferred water and sewer. Right.
I thought the document identifies that it's the obligation of the seller if they screw up and misidentify the time frame. I thought in the contract it automatically goes.
And it may have been the seller who filed the complaint against their agent. I don't know. The agent should never fill the form out. Number one.
But
Right.
I mean, I thought that the onus still responsibility fell on the seller, no matter what. If it was discovered that it was incorrectly filled out, it says, I thought on the document on that paragraph, that the responsibility
Probably
lies with
does.
the seller.
Mhm. But the commissioners found that the agent was at fault for filling it out, number one, and not correcting it when they found out it was wrong.
So one of the biggest lessons here is that the agents should not be filling in disclosure.
Well, by no means, yeah. Especially the disclosure disclaimer. You know, we used to, when I was managing, I would train my agents, okay, if this was the disclosure disclaimer form, the 4-page document, they said, how do we handle that? I said, this is how you handle it, just like this. Just like that. Literally, that's what I would do. Just like that. Hand it to the seller. Don't advise them. Don't do anything. And never, ever, and we see this, never, ever fill it out for the seller, right? But, yeah, there's a lot of instances about that kind of stuff. So disclosure is probably one of the bigger issues that we deal with, or concealment, not just not disclosing, but hiding, you know. And as a matter of fact, we did have one not too long, because I know there's a little bit of this going around, scamming, where somebody calls an agent and says, I want to sell my lot. I have an unapproved lot, I want to sell it. And here's my name. They went on public record, found out who the owner was, and they're posing as the owner. The agent didn't do any kind of checking or anything whatsoever, listed the lot, and it was going to settlement when the actual owner found out. And the actual owner filed a lawsuit against, or filed a complaint against the licensee for not checking. Now, who normally checks beyond public record? I'm telling you, you might want to, especially if you have any kind of suspicion. Unapproved land is easy to do because there's nobody there to knock on the door. But that can get you in trouble. That's one. Yes.
Quick question about finding the buyer agent also guilty of the situation.
Mhm.
And I know we always think that the money, it's the reason why he pushed his client, but it could be that he didn't know any better. I'm just thinking, right,
Could be.
out loud. It could
Right.
be. The broker's not next to him at closing, so
Mhm.
sometimes you do what you think it's right. And that's why we're here, right, to learn more
That's
and
right.
not
Let's
have
hope
this
so.
type of mistakes. But I was just wondering, I can see how the listing agent, you can prove that he, made this mistake and how you went deep into the investigation. But how do you prove really if the buyer agent pushed his client to sign? And if he did, I mean, at the end of the day, it's his decision to whether sign or not, or just say, you know what, I'm just saying this is not right. I don't feel comfortable. I didn't know this. I'm not signing, whatever. So I
Well,
don't know.
The investigator investigated the title, everybody that was at that table to get the story. Now, I'll go back to the first thing you mentioned. If you're not sure, it's always better to check and not move forward. Stop. I know it's inconvenient. You're all sitting around the table. Everybody's waiting for the signatures and the documentation and everything. But if you're at all worried, that's why I'm here today. I want you to worry. Okay, I do want you to take a step back in your jobs and think about things as they are happening to make sure that you're not going to get in trouble as best you can. Pick up the phone and call Fernando and say, hey, what do I do in this situation? We have people sitting around the room, what do I do? Okay, stop. Don't keep moving forward, but stop. That's the best advice I can give you. There's another question?
Beyond researching the public record, what do you suggest going deeper for research?
Ask for ID.
Oh.
Ask for
that's
ID.
it?
Yep.
Okay.
That can be what?
Driver's license can be fake.
Oh, it can be, yep. But at least if you're sitting in front of that panel of commissioners and you said, I got their driver's license, you did one step more than anybody else has been doing, and you should be okay. They're not ogres. I mean, they're practitioners. Of the three, two are industry members, one is a consumer member, and that's on purpose. The consumer member is there to have a goggle on as a member of the public, whereas the industry members have to know a little bit about what's going on. So, okay, how are we doing on time, Kara? Almost. Again, I'm going to breeze through the rest of that because dual agency, we talked about that a little bit. Advertising in general. So that's the extent of my slideshow. I'd just like to touch on one last thing that's related to what we just talked about. Please follow procedures on everything you do. I know it's difficult sometimes as a former practitioner. You're in the heat of the moment, you're trying to close a deal, you're trying to get something to settlement, you're trying to resolve a home inspection issue, whatever. Everything in a complaint is going to be scrutinized, okay? Your PIN, the property inspection notice, that's going to be scrutinized. Your home inspection addendum is going to be scrutinized against it. Okay, who actually decided who was going to do what, Did they do it? Those kind of things. So stop, take a minute, and review everything, and if you have any problems, talk to your supervision. Any other questions? I tried to touch on some topics today that I see a lot of. Yes?
Yes, if a home inspection is done and then that contract does not go through, and we all know the home inspection is the opinion of one person, when the next contract is done, does that seller and that agent has any obligation to disclose to the new buyer what was the defect in that house?
The seller has an obligation to disclose any latent defects that were discovered.
Once
And
the
now
home
they know
inspection
about
is
it.
done. I
Now
know
that they know about it, yep.
But again, that home inspection is the opinion of one person only.
It is, yep.
But maybe the next is not something that the seller knew it, and is the one person's opinion.
Now, we're not gonna adjudicate issues between buyers and sellers, okay?
Oh, go ahead. Oh.
But the,
On the heels of that, I'm just hearing Chuck Caskey's in comments from years ago. What are the facts? What are the material facts? The facts are that in the opinion of that home inspector, those are the things that they found. So we might not know those as facts, but the fact is we know that the opinion of that home inspector, so
right.
still
And
requires disclosure.
That's exactly right, and I hear Chuck too. There's a difference between latent defect and material fact. Okay, latent defect is what a seller is required to disclose that they know of, right? And now a home inspection has discovered a latent defect. All right, now they know about it. I know it's an opinion of one person, but if it's ambiguous, then they might want to have somebody else verify that it's truly a defect. An agent, you guys, are responsible to disclose material facts. Okay, and the material fact is something that would cause a buyer to buy or not buy, or what they might decide to pay for it. That's basically a material fact. A latent defect is not readily apparent, that's why it's latent, and it's a defect, meaning something's wrong. It's either a health issue or whatever that component is supposed to do, it's not doing. So that's a latent defect. That's why the disclosure disclaimer has that latent defect question on both disclosure and disclaimer, because nothing excuses a seller from disclosing latent defects, nothing. There are those 7 exemptions for the disclosure disclaimer form. Sale, foreclosure, estate sale, things like that, where you're not required to do that. Yes?
So can you explain the difference again between latent defects and material defects, please?
Yep. Latent defect is something that is not readily apparent. I'll use a basic example. Every time you get a heavy rain from the west, the living room window leaks. Okay, that's a latent defect. Okay, the homeowner knows about it because it happens, but a buyer walking through the house on a nice sunny day would never know that. A material fact might be, something that you knew or should have known that would cause a buyer to either what they might pay for it or whether they would buy it or not. That's a material fact. And that's what we're all held to. You guys are all held to a standard of disclosing material facts. Okay? Sellers are held to latent defects. And something could be both. If the agent knows that the window leaks every time it rains, that all of a sudden is, to that agent, a material fact that they should disclose. Yes?
Okay, I wanted to ask you a question, more of a comment question for you, because I know you have a lot of authority in Maryland. But with the rise of AI and new ways how real estate agents are evolving, especially young people, they're evolving so quick. It looks like what we have, the fences we have to control them, is not sufficient enough, because the people on top, and like you say, there's a lot of bureaucracy in there. Sometimes probably it's hard for you to come out with some type of announcement to help us. But this is coming really fast. It's evolving fast. It's like, you going 5 miles an hour and this going 55 miles an hour. And it's not going to get any better. It's actually right now, as we speak, with AI, it's coming up fast. There's a lot of new things coming up right now for lead generation, for people to get leads to buy or sell. There are ways how people are calling other people using different agents, even AI agents doing that. So for those things, we need guidelines, because I think we need, if you cannot really cope with the situation, at least give us some guidelines to see what can we be doing, and what can we be sure that this is the correct thing to do before somebody gets into big trouble, with anything. So how are you evolving, especially in your leadership capacity, to make sure that we are going to be coping with this evolving thing that's coming so fast at us?
That's a tough question, Fernando. Wish you'd asked me outside. No. The mission of the Real Estate Commission, the mission is to protect the public by enforcing the laws, right? So that's, and by laws I mean what's in Title 17, which is actually the law, and what's also in what's called COMAR. It's the Code of Maryland Regulations. Those are regulations, but they're just as enforceable as the law. They just, a lot of times, support the law. That's all we can do as a commission. Now, I know the trade associations are probably better equipped to deal with technology changes and things like that you're talking about, but, and they have one hell of a lobby to get things enforced as laws. Once they do, then that's when we come in to enforce the law. So coming up with policies like that is tough for the Real Estate Commission to do, because we're not policy makers. We might weigh in on a proposed legislation, like I tried to do last year with some of the things that got done with CE. Didn't work, but I tried, because they have a hell of a lobby, MR, which is good in some ways. What I can also say to the management and the ownership of companies is to make sure that you have policy and procedures in place that agents are aware of and abide by as best as you can make them, because that's your get out of jail free card as well. And I don't know if that really answers your technology question, but we don't get involved, unfortunately, at the commission level in creating policies regarding technology. We're doing our best right now. We have a system, we call it AS400. It's our whole software system. It handles all the licensees' issues. It's 20-some years old. And so right now we have a whole team from the state creating a brand new system, thank God, because there's so many improvements that is needed from our standpoint, not necessarily yours, but from our standpoint. But from a technology standpoint in terms of the marketplace, I think the associations might be better equipped to answer that. Anybody else? That get you in an hour? Good. Oh, one more.
Just very quick about the latent defect. I don't know if this is related. In commercial, is there a latent defect, like seller need to disclose certain stuff?
I'm going to claim ignorance on that. I don't know, but I think if you are, because the residential property, the property disclosure disclaimer is a residential form. It's not used in commercial. So I'm going to say probably not. I think commercial is a whole different Wild West. But that residential, that Maryland form is actually called residential property disclosure disclaimer for residences only, which makes the latent defect issue a requirement. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would also caution you, this is as a former broker as well, and I'm sure Kara would caution you, if you're going to do commercial, be careful, because you might be held to a standard that you don't know anything about. So, yes.
Yeah.
This question is about a building. If you see that the vents are dark and the building says, no, those are just dirty, it's no mold, as a realtor, what do you do?
If you see what you think is mold in a house, and you're, like, say, the buyer's agent, or even the listing agent. Listing agent,
Listing agent.
Okay, if I was a listing agent and I went down to the basement, I'm getting ready to list a property, that is something that I should or should have known. And I would say to the seller, we should have that just checked out as to whether it's active mold, bad mold, good mold, whatever, before we market it, because I'm going to have to disclose it.
the
because I know about
seller,
it.
the seller goes to the building and the building says, no, 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 that's not mold. But there was no testing done.
What do you mean going to the building?
Well, it's a building, so the vents go up and down the whole tier.
Oh, like a condo, you mean, or
Yeah.
something like that? Oh, okay, okay. I can only tell you from a disclosure standpoint and an enforcer standpoint, I would take it to the next level and have it inspected. But I can't give you legal advice, unfortunately. I think that might start to fall into some legal advice in terms of how that seller, what's required in the condominium documents for them to maintain, the condo association maintains, whatever, that kind of stuff. That's a very specific situation, I think. But if it were in a house and I was down in the basement, I'm looking at a house to list, and I saw some mold on the block wall or the drive wall, I'd say, hold up, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we're going to have to figure that out because it's going to come back to you anyway. And I'm bringing it to your attention now. We ought to take care of it now. And if I was a buyer's agent showing a house and saw that, I would certainly say to my buyer, look, you're going to, in your offer, I think you want to include a mold inspection. And I would even follow it up with an email. That's, again, something I haven't mentioned, but I would certainly follow up things like that in writing. Okay.
If you have any specific questions like that, always you can come to me, come to your office manager, and we can give guidance on those particular transactions or those instances. And also wanted to, second the document everything. Make sure any agreements, things are put in writing, and that you have those in your files, because in these instances where there might be a complaint or an issue or something that if the real estate commission is reaching out to us and we need to, prove something or provide documentation, that helps us meaning brokers, managers, that helps us help you if all of those documents are in writing in your file and organized and signed, also filled out and signed. And if you have any questions on any of that, please always reach out when you have the questions, sooner rather than later.
Good. Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you all very much. I appreciate you having me out. I'll come back anytime.
Thank you. Oh, we might take you up on that one. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. We really appreciate it.